What happens with a lot of religions is once they get started, it's very hard for people to back out. I remember when I was a minister, I had a little church, and the problem with all of that was the minister that I had didn't want to let people go and preach the gospel. He wanted them to stay in his church. One of his offsiders said to me many years later that the preacher was trying to save us from the ministry. And I've thought about that for years and years. And I guess that comes down to how determined you are to be in the ministry with the calling upon your life. Because if the calling's not on your life, you will not withstand what the devil's going to dish out. Oh yes, there is a devil. Believe me when I say it. It's not to frighten anyone. So I tried as best as I could to go and start this church, and made sure nobody from the church come with me. Me and the wife went. Problem with that was her mother was in that church, and so leaving that began the complex disintegration of my family because we left the church. But I was always a person that wanted to develop and grow and get on with it. I started a street outreach there, which went on for 10 or 12 years. A gentleman by the name of Ken Duncan, a world-famous photographer, came in after it, which I thought, let him take it over, it's going to grow. Famous people grow things. And it did. But what happened was, and this is why I'm saying this, once the first thing was trying to reculturalize under the pressure of you've broken away and you are somewhere that you shouldn't be. I approached the Christian Outreach Centre and they said, yeah, come in. And I went away and did their course and stuff. And what I found was, because of this driven idea that you're somewhere where you're supposed to be, I couldn't reculturalize. I couldn't get the monkey off me back. And it was terrible. In the meantime, you've got the mother-in-law working and interfering, the other side of the family interfering, using this as a way of dismantling the family. Whether they were aware of it or not didn't matter. That's basically what happened. Interference is a big thing in a family. So when I realised that the wife was starting to disintegrate personally, I had to make a decision. I had to make a really quick decision. I need to shut this down. I've got the fact that I can't reculturalise. I've got the psychology of the minister thinks I'm in rebellion, because I valued what they thought, but it doesn't mean they were right. Now I've got the wife starting to disintegrate because elements from the original church are starting to undermine her. And all this and then I'm in the Christian Outreach Centre, and I can't reculturalise because I'm still spiritually unresolved with the church that I was originally in. I'd built the church up to 40 people, which is about average for a normal Christian church in Australia. And I was going relatively well, but the dynamics around me was undermining the whole construct of what was going on. So what I actually started to see was the brilliance, the absolute brilliance and way in which the devil can dismantle your life without even touching you. He'll just micro-incrementally dismantle everything around you until everything's collapsed, and you're watching it, and if you don't turn too quick enough, you're going to pay a high price, which I did. Now, at that point, when everything started to collapse and I was aware of it, I've gone to myself, I either battle on and I'm going to end up alone, I'm going to end up doing this at the expense of the family, because they were working on my missus from behind, the original church. So I've gone, right, I've got to shut the door. So I sorted out a plan for all the people and said, these are the other church options. I'm in a situation where I don't feel that I'm an asset for you as a minister anymore, and I shut the church. And we started to go to another church. By this time, to cut a long story short, the whole thing disintegrated. I ended up on my own anyway and whatnot. And I'll never forget some of the people from that church that came and rallied around me when it really fell apart. What I'm trying to say is, there was a point with Islam where it should have been stopped. And that point was when Muhammad had the vision in the cave and it got misinterpreted. There was a point in Saul's kingship where it should have been stopped. But Samuel didn't have the courage to tell him that you're out. The Lord's anointed David, you're out. Nathan, or whatever happened. David was anointed king and nobody told anybody. And sure, Saul should have just said, look, this ain't working for me. I'm a goat farmer. I'm not a king. It hasn't worked out. It's all going awry. I'm getting chastised. I'm getting punished. I'm going to shut this down. People don't know when to shut things down. And so they hang on to things that not only destroy them, but destroy everybody else around them. And I know. By the time, just hear this for a minute, by the time these people from the other church had finished with me, the family was diminished, and they decided that I needed to go into the mental health place, that I was too enthusiastic. That I was too unhinged. Now, it was all right while it suited the church, right? I was all right for 10, 15 years going to the boys' home, going out on the streets, and suited them while I was a part of their church. But as soon as it was time to go and birth something new, covertly, everything around me was interfered with, undermined, and diminished. The magnificence of the way in which the devil dismantled the things that mattered in my life, the only way you would have been able to understand it, and I'm sure there's people that have, is to go through it. The problem that they had by putting me in I put myself into the mental part of the hospital was I was one of the I was one of the reverends that worked there. So I put myself in, the chaplain from the hospital come down, he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I just wanted to see how far these people would go. And they'll go all the way. Right? They'll go all the way. So you better have your discernment, you better have some things switched on, and you better know when it's time to stop. Because Islam's the result of a situation where Muhammad wasn't told to stop. The same with Germany. Hitler wasn't told to, well, he was probably told to stop, but they found a way through. Violence and all the rest of it. It was the same with Islam. It's not going to end well. Right? It's just not going to end well. Whoever you are that's listening to this now, you might even be a politician. Sometimes you got to get to the point where you say to yourself, I've got to stop. This just is not conscionable. It's not conscionable. Muhammad appears to have understood his mission as a continuation, restoration and correction of the faith of Abraham, Moses and Jesus. He wanted to correct it, and that's probably why the people of the book said, no, we can't recognize you and we can't authenticate you. He appealed to the Jewish and Christian communities, the people of the book, as possessors of earlier divine revelation and expected recognition as a genuine prophet of God. Muhammad knew who the people of the book were. He knew. And he wanted to be one of them. And he didn't just go up to them once. There were several engagements and they just said, no, you're not a prophet. Your message isn't lining up with what are the parameters in which we can accept that. And the recognition didn't come. So most Jewish communities rejected Muhammad because they did not accept him as a prophet promised within their scriptural tradition. Most Christian communities rejected Muhammad because they did not accept his claims concerning prophecy, revelation, or the teachings about Jesus. Now, the teachings about Jesus went in all directions. Some believed he was God, some believed he wasn't God. Most cults believed Jesus wasn't God. Okay, the actual fact of the matter is he was. And as a result, Muhammad was not accepted into the existing Jewish or Christian religious framework. Instead of this, and this is how Islam was conceived and evolved. Instead, a distinct Islamic identity gradually emerged, separating itself from the communities whose scriptures it initially appealed to for validation. This is what you got to understand about Muhammad. He wanted to be one of the people of the book. He didn't set out to start Islam. Islam was a consequence of rejection. Now, this is why I mentioned the church that I started. I wasn't rejected, but I wasn't sent out either with a blessing, really. They just weren't going to do it. They were not going to do it. And so there's certain ways in which, with the things of the Spirit, that you have to go about it. And if you don't go about it the right way, something is going to come back to bite you. And humanity is designed in a way in which, be it in, what about, take soccer for instance, or football. You can be a great soccer player, but if you're not the coach's son, right, you might sit on the bench for the whole of your career. Another way of putting it, what you'll find in Australia is a lot of these churches are family dynamic. In other words, if you're not in the inner circle, you're not going to be going anywhere. You're going to have the pastors as the mum and dad, you're going to have the secretary as the daughter, you're going to have the youth pastor will be the son of the part, and it just goes on and on and on. In most cases, not all. So this little talk was just to show you that Muhammad didn't just say, let's do Islam. Muhammad went to be one of the people of the book. And there was people in Islam that knew that's what Muhammad wanted. And they all just didn't stay Muslim. That's why there was fights within the Islamic groups themselves, because they weren't sure what was going on. They plagiarized the scriptures, they plagiarized the Torah, and it just turned out to be no different to the Jehovah's Witness Bible, just worse. They didn't know when to stop. They didn't know when to stop. And I'm going to challenge somebody watching this right now. If you're a politician, you might be in a relationship, you might be in a position somewhere or other, and it's in the back of your mind that you need to stop. You might be thinking about suicide, you might want to be getting off a drug, you might have had enough of drinking, it might even be your job. There comes a point where you have to decide, I need to stop, or the consequences of this are going to escalate so badly. Take politics and Annika Wells. When she was caught spending all that money, what did she need to do? She needed to stop. Take the Prime Minister after he's not the latest pay rise he got, but the one before that. Shouldn't he have just said that's enough? He just got a pay rise that's worth more than most people will make in a year. If not for some in a lifetime. They don't know when to stop. It's the first sign of corruption. When your morality's starting to diminish, yourself and everything around you will start to diminish. And morality could just be as simple as, I don't want to be in this job anymore. I'm not. At that point, you're not an asset. You might be turning up, you might be doing this and that, but deep inside, you're not an asset. Sometimes you've got to know, you've just got to know, for the benefit of yourself and everybody else around you, when to stop.